Hey everybody, I'm Greg Iles, coming to you after a long day of the kickoff of my tour. Officially it's tomorrow, but I've been doing TV interviews all day in a sport coat and dress shirt, so this is a relief. I'm here with my buddy Matthew Gwynn, Edgar Award nominated author of The Resurrectionist and also the Scribe of the Scribe. And Matthew reviewed my book in the Jackson paper. He tore me a new one. I'm just kidding. He was kind. But he's a good friend and he knows Southern literature. And the last time I did this, I think, was in Nashville, and I had J.T. Ellison. She was a great interviewer and a great moderator. And I knew Matthew would do just as good a job. So here we are, and we're just going to hang out for, I think, half an hour. I'm going to take your questions and just talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever Matthew wants to talk about. And we have a handy cheat sheet right here, okay?
2 cheat sheets.
Yeah, so.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Oh yeah, man.
To talk.
It says tell fans why you're here. First of all, readers, right? Not fans. Why am I here? Because I get a whole lot of queries through Facebook. Honestly, I don't get to check it very much. So when I do check it, there's like a big backlog of messages. So this kind of event is the best place to like shoot a question through and get a real answer and some flavor of, you know, authenticity, we hope. So, all right, I'll shut up now. What you got, Matthew?
Well, this is a really strong book, and stronger than one would expect you to finish the follow the trilogy with.
Well, thanks.
And I think it's got so much to say about small town power, about oligarchies in the South, and the Bienville Poker Club is a big nemesis in this book, and they go back all the way to the redeemers of the Reconstruction. And I thought I would ask a pretty general question. It relates to this book, but to a lot of your books. Why can you not get yourself finished with exploring evil?
That's a good question. I think because you confront it one way or another every day, you know, in the South. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've gotten involved in politics a little bit behind the scenes. I've sort of crusaded in my hometown trying to change things. And, you know, I've always been obsessed with the nature of evil. We come up as children thinking it's black and white. Obviously, as you become an adult, that's really the process of discovering no parents really know what they're doing, their children forever, and there's no white, no black, everybody's gray. And as you know, that's a horrible shock.
Yeah.
And a lot of the evil I see done in the world is done by, you know, the good people, the thing we call evil, I guess. And so, and that corruption, God knows they have it in, you know, the boroughs in New York and Chicago and everywhere, but there's something about those small southern towns, from there up to the Machine in Memphis and all that, you know, it just has a particular southern flavor to it. You know?
And then Natchez is so unique among small southern towns, the incredible percentage of millionaires that King Cotton produced.
At the time, that's right. It was, you talk about oligarchy, yeah, really, it was a true aristocracy there. I mean, it prefigured what you'd have in the Delta later, you know, But the guys in Natchez at the time of like 1850, they were like kings or lords, certainly, and just ruled the place. And, you know, it's not quite that drastic in the present, but certainly as I was coming up in the 70s and 60s and I heard stories, you know, those towns are controlled by a handful of people. It's not necessarily boss hog, you know, but a handful of guys in banking or oil or whatever. I mean, positions like mayor and city councilman, they don't really mean anything. That's not where the power is, you know.
Well, and this book is so fun about those backroom meetings. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there are lots of back rooms in the new town Greg is in, Bienville, Mississippi, somewhere in an imaginary space between Natchez and Vicksburg. And it's also great. Again, I want to be very careful with spoilers. It was a hard book to review.
Yeah.
Because I could just set up to about page 50, things start getting really complicated, tentacles and double crosses. But this book is fascinating. I don't know if you can talk about it in the abstract, but there's one character you want to love who turns out to be not nearly as good a person as you hoped she was.
Yeah.
And one person you want to hate who turns out to be, at the core, a fairly good guy.
Exactly. All today I had to try to summarize this book for people. And what I eventually wound up with was I said, strip away the murder, strip away the trappings. This book is really about two men who love the same woman. Mm-hmm. You know, at core, that's what it is. One who left the town, meaning never to come back, and one who stayed and married the woman. And when the other one is forced to come back, there's just no way the town is big enough to hold all that. But as you said, I found that male character, let's say, who I thought was the antagonist, threatening to become the protagonist in the end. And I thought this woman, who I sort of love myself, as you penetrate the core of what she really did, you just keep resetting your boundaries. Like, well, can I go with that? Can I go with that?
Yeah.
You know, I'm interested to see what women think about this book. I had some female interviewers today tell me they loved it, you know, but I think the end is pretty shocking, and you know.
Well, my sister is one of my manuscript readers, and I switched a character in the Resurrectionist who turns diabolical to a woman, and I said, will women readers hate it? And my baby sister said, oh, we love a good bitch. And I thought, oh dear.
There you go.
Not to say that your character goes down to that level, but it seems like you're dealing with here one of the most interesting questions about ethics in fiction is people trying to get just a little bit pregnant.
Yeah.
And then they get gone.
Well, I think that's how it happens, right? You think, I can just do this, or I can just go here and I can pull back from that. And wow, there's no pulling back, I guess. You know, it's just the slippery slope. It sounds like a cliche, but cliches are rooted in truth, right?
Devil wins every deal.
There you go. There you go.
Well, do you want to get to some
readers?
Yeah,
let's take some questions. We'll see.
You got some good ones here on the iPad.
See what you guys have to say. And we're supposed to sign some books. Somebody is telling me that. So are we personalizing these books, or we're just signing? All right. Sorry about that, if anybody wanted personalized.
All right. Well, your first question comes from Ontario.
Wow.
Clarice, if I'm pronouncing it right, Jan in Ontario. She says, Mississippi is your soul. Can you tell us, please, if current political conditions are influencing the direction of your stories?
Current political conditions, you think nationally or in Mississippi?
Well, you have a good bit about Trump in this book.
Yeah, I did. Well, yeah, you know, here's what I think. Without getting too much into politics about Trump and any of that, the election of Trump was very significant for Mississippi, to me, for a couple reasons. First of all, if Trump had been from Mississippi, he never could have been elected president with his record. That's number one. Number two, Mississippi's always been excoriated. It's been the whipping boy for the nation on race. It's always been so easy to say, oh, isn't that racism terrible down there in Mississippi, right? But look how virtuous we are. What the election of Trump revealed is that those sins for which Mississippi's excoriated, racism, xenophobia, etc., have been present in the white body politic all along nationwide. And, you know, several noted black leaders commented on that in the 60s. They said, you know, I'd rather deal with a southern redneck who is going to tell me exactly how he feels, but if he promises me something, he's going to stand by his word, rather than I go up north, a guy's going to smile, shake my hand, pat me on the back, and then stab me in the back when I turn around. You know, so it's ironic. When I started writing Natchez Burning, I really was hearing then, we're living in a post-racial America. And I thought, wow, is this book going to be completely irrelevant? And today, I don't think one person in America would argue we're living in a post-racial society, you know? So politics absolutely plays a role in my books. And I pulled way back on this book, in all honesty. As I went through on the very last edit, there were some conversations about present events. And I just, I had a couple of angry screeds in there, and I plucked those out.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, sorry, let's go ahead.
Well, that will date it, right?
Yeah, it will.
Marissa from Round Rock, Texas. How do you give your characters such a realistic voice and unmistakable personality? Each character is vibrant and commanding. I'm just wondering if there is a method to it, or is it pure talent?
Oh, God, that's a very flattering question.
Are you going to opt for pure talent?
Yeah, we'll take that and move on. No, I'm kidding. No, and Matthew knows the answer to this. I mean, first of all, you have to realize that every character thinks they're the hero of the story, right? Mm-hmm. No character really is peripheral if you look at the story from inside that character. You can't ever write from the point of view of your protagonist or whatever. You have to get in everybody's mind and just process the story that way. And then secondly, every character, male, female, antagonist, protagonist, shapeshifter, whatever, they're all just facets of you, you know, or people that you've known, and amalgams and of all that. And so when you start making up out of whole cloth, you might as well just give up, because, you know, you're not going to move anybody,
Fantasy.
Right? Well,
yeah.
you answer that. Tell me.
Well, the novelist Harry Crews said, nobody is a villain in his own heart. And that seems to me a good way to write your antagonists. To me, it's all about wants and needs. Everybody is either on their way to getting what they want or being thwarted in getting what they want.
Right.
And in your book, it's somebody trying to do the right thing, even though he's gotten himself kind of dirty, and the status quo wanting to keep things just about exactly the same.
That's right. That gives me another thing. A lot of people don't understand what the essence of what a hero is, or what. It's not bravery on the battlefield or overt courage or anything like that. 99.9% of people are doing just what you said. They're working in their own interest. Even people who go through life and people say, oh, she's such a martyr or whatever. If you look deep enough, you frequently see they're acting in their own interests, whatever warped thing it is that they want. A hero is someone who truly sacrifices and acts in the interests of others. That's the essence of heroism, sacrifice and nothing else. And I think that's what, without commenting on religion at all, I mean, that's what lies at the center of the, you know, the sort of Christian formulation of religion.
Well, I think I can comment on religion a bit in context. Your protagonist runs into somebody who makes a tough choice, and he says it's rare you see a real Christian who will sacrifice in, you know, materially to do what's right.
Yeah, you know, and he does it in a place where nobody will ever really know why. That's heroism. A minor character who could have taken the easy road and just said, "I'll just keep my head down,"
right,
and instead says, "You know, what good is me being a Christian if I'm not going to really act in that way?"
I talk to my pastor, not my accountant or lawyer. Yeah.
All right.
Melanie, Houston, Texas. No question. Just wanted to say you're an amazing writer.
Thank you. Wow. Appreciate that.
Good thought from Houston. Michelle in Tupelo. How do you come up with an idea that becomes a book?
Well, as Matthew can tell you, you know, when you start out, you tend to be in that mode where, you're trying to think of a great idea, I guess, that would become a book. But you quickly get out of that mode and you realize that anything can be a book, right? I mean, it's trying to sit there and come up with some high concept idea, you know, that would sell in Hollywood or something. That's not the way to go. It's
kind of soulless.
Yeah, you want the thing that takes hold of you deep down inside and just won't let go and nags at you and bugs you. You know, that's the idea you want to go with.
Yeah, the one that won't go away, or that makes you mad enough to put in the work it takes to write a book.
Yes.
Gail in Ponchatoula, what gives you your inspiration for your books?
The need to put my kids through college? No, I'm just kidding. You know, when you get down the road to where I am, 16 books, you sort of, you can lose touch with that, actually. I mean, I started as a musician. Matthew was also a musician way back in the day. And I liked being a musician better than a writer, honestly, because in the life of a musician, in terms of the actual art part of it, is so much more enjoyable. I mean, you're traveling around, you're playing in front of people every night. All this approbation is coming back at you, right?
Instant.
It's like a oxytocin loop or something. It's just great. And when you write a book, you're sitting alone in a room for a year, 2 years, no feedback, nothing, and you're sitting there digging in that mind, looking for that glint of something, you know. And so it does take inspiration to get through that, and self-discipline and all that. And I think the inspiration comes the same as musicians or painters or anybody else. You have something inside that you got to get out, and you know, everybody feels that. Everybody feels the desire for self-expression. So you're lucky if you have the talent or the discipline or whatever to put yourself in a position to you know, move people and resonate with people and get paid to do it. I mean, you feel very lucky to get to do that. I feel lucky. So,
and you get that, it's much delayed gratification, but that feeling of somebody, I love meeting people that feels like they read the ink off the page.
Right.
Of something I read.
Good.
And
Exactly.
That's that great give and take feeling. Robert in Mount Laurel, New Jersey wants to know if The Quiet Game and Black Cross are in the works for movies.
They're not right now, but I will say Black Cross to me unquestionably is probably the best book I ever wrote, and man, would it make a great movie in the classic old vein of those World War II films from, you know, from the 40s, 50s, 60s. Wow, I'd like to see it. And one of the joys of my life has been, I've had some different audio narrators along the way, but Black Cross was narrated by a guy originally. I'm not even sure you can get this version now. It was originally narrated by a guy named J.O. Sanders, a wonderful actor who was in JFK and some other things. And Jay is a really talented voice actor, and I have one character of a Scottish general, and Jay did the whole book in the voice of that guy, of Sean Connery. And every time I'd hear that tape and I'd hear that Scottish burr or whatever it's called, oh, it just gave me chills, man. It's fun.
That's good. I can't listen to my books on audio.
I usually
all
don't.
I hear is the dead sentences.
But let me say one thing. Audio came up. I usually try not to listen. And I got a new narrator on Mississippi Blood, a guy named Scott Brick, who does a lot of the best stuff. And I got some input and got to hear him. And about 2 months ago, I got an email from Scott Brick who said, he didn't say I could tell people this, so I'm going to, you know, this is why you watch interviews though, right? And he said that he had just spent the day narrating a section of Cemetery Road, and he said, man, I sobbed my way through this. He said, I'm going through something like this in my life, and I couldn't believe this, and I just want to tell you how much it moved me. And I thought, man, this guy reads a lot of stuff, so that's the kind of reaction you want to get. You know?
We are all on Cemetery Road.
There you go, man. Whew. Somebody asked me that today, you know, and I don't think they were expecting the answer they got. You know?
Yeah, it's not a happy party answer. Charlotte from West Findlay, Pennsylvania. Do you get a revelation concerning a character, like a first line during sleep times? How do you fall in love with a character? And she's grateful for your books, and she's read most all of them.
Read the first part of that question again. Do you get
a revelation concerning a character, like a first line? I think she's saying during sleep times.
Yeah. You know, everybody has a different style, and my style of process is to really, really wait a long time. I really don't even work until the story's just bursting to come out, and I'm waiting for that sort of key to turn, and then it just blows out. And in the first lines, I think you're waiting for a moment like she's talking about, where it just comes into your head one day, or you just touch the keys and it comes out. Maybe a character, it may be, in this case, I mean, I usually don't do this. When you come to a Greg Iles reading, Greg Iles doesn't read, number one, okay? I feel like George Costanza talking in third person. But I'll read the opening of this book, which a lot of people have commented on. Whole chapter is one little block, right? I'll just read a little. I never meant to kill my brother. I never set out to hate my father. I never dreamed I would bury my own son. Nor could I have imagined I would betray the childhood friend who saved my life or win a Pulitzer Prize for telling a lie. All these things I have done, yet most people I know would call me an honorable man. I wouldn't go that far, but I try to be a good man, and most of the time I believe I succeed. How's this possible? These are complicated times, and it's not easy to be good. And so as an opening, people have come to me and gone, oh man, that's what I want, that kind of opening. If you go back across my books, particularly Mortal Fear comes to mind, and that began with the words, life is simple. You're healthy or you're sick. You're this or that. It's sort of a binary vision of what it comes down to. And I think, especially for guys like us who, and you're not the biggest writer in the world, new writers come to you and they're going to open it. It's like listening to a demo. They may not listen past 10 seconds, right?
Right.
So those first lines, I was on Mitch Albom's radio show the other day, and he read that opening, and he said, do you really work on that part more than the rest? And the answer's yes. I don't sit there and slave over it, but I get what I think is a very impactful passage, and then you just let it simmer, and then, you come back in a month or so and go, hey, is that as good as I thought, or is this throw it out and do something else?
Yeah, it seems like you're asking a lot of somebody to read a novel, and you need to demonstrate some authority that you know where this train is going.
Exactly.
On the first page.
I tell people that. People ask about authorial voice, and this is what I say. And there's a lot of reasons whether somebody's a writer in one page or not, but the intangible is this. When I've read 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, I may not know where the story's going, but I know the writer of the story knows where it's going, and I want to get there, right?
Exactly.
That's the hurdle you got to get over. And if you can't, throw it away and start over if you haven't accomplished that.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. Are you in good hands here?
Yep.
Ruth from El Dorado Hills, California wants to know, which authors and books do you read for pleasure?
Oh, my God. That is so hard to answer. I'm getting old and I have eye problems, so I'm reading less and less, mostly nonfiction for research. I like to reread things I loved more than, I like to discover new things, but it's rare. How often now do you read a new book and you're blown away?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I go back, and there's certain books, I read all the King's Men once every 18 months probably, or now and then I'll stop and reread all the novels of Patrick O'Brian, or I recently read all of John D. MacDonald, every Travis McGee and every standalone, And I know, for example, Stephen King's a big fan. He will go back and reread John D. MacDonald, because these guys from that era, they were genre writers, but man, they were up here, just a cut above.
Yeah, what's the great Raymond Chandler line? I lit a cigarette that tasted like a plumber's handkerchief. You can't do better than that.
That's right, man.
You can't do better. Oh, here's a nice one. Roland in Hazelhurst, Mississippi says,
Close.
How about just wishing one of your biggest fans, two of your biggest fans, Roland and Candy Price, a happy 41st anniversary.
To Roland and Candy Price, happy 41st anniversary.
That's something.
Y'all are just 30 miles down the road, man. Congratulations.
Richard in Winfield, Kansas wonders, do you plan to write any more World War II novels?
I have a World War II novel outlined with the Jonas Stern character and the McConnell character, and I don't want to say more than that. I have some latitude in what I write about, but I think there may be a certain opinion that kind of novel is not going to draw as large an audience as certain other kinds of novels. But yeah, the day will absolutely come when I go back to that, because when I was 15 years old, probably making the transition from the Count of Monte Cristo and Lord of the Rings to things, before I got to whatever people call real books or literature, I made a pass through like The Eagle Has Landed, Jack Higgins, and Eye of the Needle, Ken Follett and those things. Frederick Forsyth. There's a warm place in my heart for those things. Like a taut, fast-paced World War II thriller is as good as anything. And the reason is we've come to the 21st century. But just about every modern dilemma was present in World War II, right up to nuclear weapons, right? I mean, no internet, although Alan Turing was certainly alive, and if you wanted to go that way, there were things to do. So, short answer is yes, there will be a World War II novel, and if it were up to me, it could be the next one. You know, it's not always up to me.
Right. Daniel wants to know if you'll come speak to the Vicksburg Kiwanis Club. Isn't it dangerous for a Natchez boy to go to Vicksburg?
Yeah. You know, when I went to Boys State in the 11th grade, I figured out people from Vicksburg didn't like people from Natchez very much, and I didn't know why. And then I finally figured out it was because, in their view, we had like surrendered immediately to the Yankees and lived high while Vicksburg starved and ate rats.
Right, eating rats in caves.
Yeah. So I know I didn't answer your question. I might be able to do that, but I've learned not to say yes in an environment like this when I don't know anything about dates and all that. So we'll see. We will see.
What do you love the most about living in Natchez, Mississippi?
I'll tell you the best thing about it. That's hard to answer, but the best thing has been it doesn't matter how successful I may get in Natchez, I'm still the guy people played high school football with, or played in a rock and roll band with, or dug sewer ditches with, or loaded hardware trucks. And that is something you want to stay in touch with, because as a writer, you can't afford to, you know, start believing your own publicity, right? Yeah. When I love that quote, you know, people call me the William Faulkner of the Breaking Bad generation. It'd be great to believe that, but, you know, nobody in Natchez believes that.
Yeah.
You know?
The what?
Yeah. As they laugh.
Well, Danny, class of 70 at SNA
HS? Yeah, South Natchez.
He's in Texarkana now, but he says you are a great writer.
Wow. Danny who? 1970. That's a little before my time, but I'm curious.
Richard from Nashville wonders, what would you think about the Devil's Punch Bowl being made by the Coen brothers?
Perfect. Although I'll tell you something weird. I've written about some pretty disturbing material in my life, including medical experimentation on children and serial murder. I've never gotten as many furious letters in my life as when I wrote a book about dogfighting. I mean, really? Yeah. People wanted to crucify me, you know? And I thought, well, my God, I'm showing what's really like. And within a couple months after I wrote that book, there were big busts in Natchez of these rings of dogfighters and stuff. Not because of what I'd done, but it proved to be more real than even I suspected, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But people who love dogs, there's just an absolute threshold, you know?
Yeah, I remember reading early Amazon reviews for Larry Brown's book On Fire, his memoir of being a firefighter in Oxford, and they talk about deer hunting and his cattle and stuff, and someone in California said, if Mr. Brown were given his treatment of animals, if Mr. Brown were the first responder to an accident I was involved in, I would deny help. And I thought, what was it in that? I didn't see it. I guess dogfighting is pretty clearly inhumane, but you're just writing about it. Seems like there is more to be told in the Pen Cage series, Amy from Bristol says. And Tamara from Springboro, Ohio wonders if you'll write another Pen Cage.
There is absolutely another Pen Cage novel, and a lot of people wrote in. And let me ask anybody, please don't write in any questions, since people can see these questions. Don't include any spoilers about any particular deaths that you liked or didn't like, because I know somebody's death upset a lot of people, but some people watching this don't know that happened. But the fact that there needs to be another book on the back end of the Penn series is not so much because of Penn as it is his father. You know, for those of you who read the books, you know where Tom ended up at the end of the trilogy, and there's a lot of reasons that's not really acceptable overall, and so I'll absolutely revisit that. It won't be the next book, but I would say within the next 2 or 3. It won't be 800 pages, but it'll do justice to the story.
And this book felt so full. You know, you pick it up after those door stoppers, 3 in a row, but as far as the story arc, as far as it doing what it set out to do, it doesn't feel a bit smaller.
Today, people were joking who weren't familiar with my work. TV commentators would say, "This is a really long book." I'm like, "This is short for me."
Yeah.
600 pages, a mere 600.
Yeah. A novella.
Get yourself an editor, Greg. That's what that.
Well, Constance in Stone Mountain, Georgia, is planning a visit to Natchez.
All right.
What recommendations can you give? I guess we could treat that one pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
as much as you can.
Just email my webpage as you get close. People email all the time, and Natchez is the kind of place where, believe it or not, tourists walk up to somebody on the street and say, "So I came here because of those books. Where does Greg Iles live?" And they go, "Oh, his office is right down there. Go knock on the door." So that's kind of how it is in Natchez.
Can I tell the story about the guy with the dog?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was writing in the house that's his office, which has a big porch, and I think y'all were coming to get me for dinner, and a guy was walking a dog, and he said, "Are you Greg Iles?"
You should have said.
And so I get in the car with you 10 minutes later, and I said, "Yeah, and get that dog off my lawn." And you were like, "Please, you didn't."
No, you didn't.
I did not. But yeah, it's right on one of the streets in Natchez.
Oh, God.
Okay, have we got time for two more? Oh,
Yeah.
we got three more good ones.
Okay,
Who were your mentors? Patrice from Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
And I'm coming up to Arkansas, by the way, pretty soon, a couple days, I think, 3 days. My mentors, mentor, that's a broad term, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't have to know them, right?
Right. Matthew had possibly a mentor. He was James Dickey's assistant, although
Definitely.
Some other people say Dickey was his assistant. So that got said.
Okay.
I went to Ole Miss when Willie Morris was the writer in residence. I wouldn't say Willie was a mentor, but as John Grisham said, a lot of writers were in that program. Donna Tartt, John Grisham, myself. It isn't so much what he taught us about writing. It's that, man, when you grew up in Mississippi, you didn't even think that was a possible career path. Your parents, in my age group, It's like you're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or you're a failure, And a writer just wasn't even on the list. And so to get to college, and here's this guy bringing in William Styron and Dickey and John Knowles and Winston Groom and all these people, and you realize, wow, these guys get paid to write, and they're just normal people, to a degree. That just blew your mind open to realize this is a real thing. People, you don't have to be this white-bearded old dude to be a writer, right? And so now we have people like Angie Thomas and Jessamine Ward just blowing the world open.
Yeah.
And Angie's, 26, 27 or something?
I think 28.
And I wish that there'd have been somebody between, Faulkner and sort of us. And I mean, there were some, but, people think of Mississippi as literary, but really there's kind of a dry period there in terms of people who were huge, and certainly in commercial writers. Mississippi's known for literary writers, but people who sort of were in that literary commercial space, no. Now, Georgia, had its share.
Well, we were so proud of Flannery O'Connor and so proud when Pat Conroy lived there. I used to drive by his house.
Really?
Going to soccer practice, being carried to soccer practice. And I just thought, how does he create art and live so well as he does? That seemed like the best of all worlds.
I got compared to him in the Washington Post yesterday, and I'm like Wayne's World, we are not worthy. But I got to meet him shortly before he died, and I didn't get to visit with him long, but he called me a couple of times at home when he was in the sauce a little bit, and wow, man, he was entertaining. It was a lot of few F-bombs and whatever, but he wasn't shy with his opinions,
Yeah, but a good-hearted
guy.
Just such a big-hearted guy. Yes.
I think in general you can say that about writers. You get around the movie business and things like that, and you run into a lot of people who believe their own publicity. They're in a bubble and nobody ever tells them no. I know more than a couple writers worth $2, $3, $4, $500 million. And they're the same cats they were when they were 12, 13. They're just that same guy or same woman. It's like, I'm not. Yeah, I got a little money, but I'm not. I don't have the big head.
Yeah.
And that's a relief, I think.
Yeah.
And it could even be insecure.
Right.
Even after great accomplishment, you're alone with them in a bar and they tell you what they're worrying about or whatever, and you just think, wow, they're just like me, man.
And everybody's worried, wherever they are on the economic scale, that this one they're working on is not going to be not as good as the last one, but it needs to be better than the last one.
And sell more, whether it's better or not. It's like there's two trends, man. Up or down. Right? And if you're on the one that heads in the southern direction, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
in
you're
this
going
business.
back to your old friends.
Your old gig,
Well, I somehow managed to shut down the iPad, but I remember the last two.
Okay.
One was, as a thriller writer, what did you learn in writing Cemetery Road?
Oh, wow. I don't think of myself as a thriller writer, not because I think I'm above genre or anything, but because I've gone, I saw a guy tweet the other day. It was something great. He said, a mystery writer is what did my 11-month-old just put in his mouth? A thriller writer is, can I get to my 11-month-old and snatch that out of his throat before he chokes to death? Okay? That's the difference. It's simplistic, but it's true. I played with the form a little bit in this, and I think that I'm going to have some angry mystery readers, because when you start Cemetery Road and there's a murder, and it's a little meta in the beginning. The guy says, I'm beginning with this murder, because that's kind of the way these things begin.
Right.
But that's not the true beginning, right? And don't trust me, because nothing is really what it seems. And so I think about 100 pages in, when the second person dies, who seems completely unrelated to the whole thing, you go, okay, wait a second. This guy's doing something else. This is not Murder, She Wrote, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know what you call this. I mean, it turns into a thriller at the end. But,
well, if you put a gun to my head and said, what's it most about, I would say community.
Yeah.
Community getting exploited, community doing the right thing, community trying not to sell its soul for a big dollar.
And yet a lot of people really willing to do just that. And a guy pointed out to me, actually my agent pointed this out, I was talking about just what you're saying, and he said, don't think it's only small towns. Look at Amazon coming into New York and then being run out of New York, and now the governor's calling them to come back. And how far will people bend over backwards for the dollar?
Yeah.
Will they kill a neighbor to protect the dollar?
Yeah. Thinking they're protecting the greater good. More neighbors.
All right, we had one more.
One more, a great one to end with.
What's
the advice that you would give an aspiring writer?
Wow. What advice would I give an aspiring writer? What advice would you give an aspiring writer?
Read, number one.
Yeah.
I see a lot of aspiring writers who don't want to read.
Yeah.
You have to read people better than you, whether they're better at plotting than you are, whether they're better with language or character. You should never read anybody who's at your level or below it.
Right.
And get ready to put in hour upon hour.
It's like being a musician. You always want to be the worst musician in the band,
Once you get past wanting to be the guy who plays the 8-bar solo and all the girls chase backstage.
That's exactly right. No, and you're right. In the beginning, when I think back, that is, people say, oh, what did you write before Spandau Phoenix? And I say, my college term paper, 12 years before. And then I wrote a 241,000-word novel, and it became a New York Times bestseller. People don't really believe it. It's like, oh, you must have, how could you do that? I didn't sit around practicing writing. I learned everything I learned just by reading, right? It's there for you, man. And it's not just reading. Watch films, watch cable TV. Some of the best writing in the world is going on in the cable TV space right now, You just, and God knows the form is evolving all the time. You know, it's stripping down. It's getting more intimate. Things that used to be rules and conventions are blown up, and you know about first person mixed with third person, or reliability of narrators, or what's permissible. You know, it's just things that you wouldn't have dared to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago. People are doing them every night on Netflix or on the newest bestseller, you know. So you got to stay up on that, because if you don't understand where the craft is and the art is, you're not gonna work what little magic gets you pulled up into the space where you're paid to do what you do. I saw a tweet by an agent the other day who said, and she was tweeting to other agents, and she said, remember this, and this should put a chill in the aspiring writer's veins. She said, remember when you're reading something and your response is, oh my God, I really love this. Will it sell? No, probably not. Your duty is to reject it.
Oh, wow.
Even if you like it.
Wow.
Because you're in business, you're not a cheerleader, etc. Now, if my first agent would have taken that advice, I'd have never had a career. So I don't want that agent who has that attitude, but you should know that is, you know, that's the position they're in. You know, we get mad at editors. I know I'm rambling. We get mad at editors for this or that, you know, for not taking risk, etc. But you have to keep in mind, they're in a corporate environment. And every one of them, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, has pulled some book that they just love, some slush pile submission, and they championed it and put it out. Oh, this is going to work. And then they just got it handed to them, right? They paid the money. It didn't sell 20 copies. And once you do that 4 or 5 times and you go in those corporate meetings and people are kind of looking at you like, he's the guy who bought that, you know?
Losing money.
And so when you're trying to write your novel, you're not doing yourself a service if you're not thinking about that environment. Now, you know, if your goal is to write, you know, literally the next great American novel, then disregard everything I say, write it, and, you know, maybe the mountain will come to you. But in general, you got to think about the business side, you know?
Yeah, and I'll come in from maybe literary angle, and what I try to teach my students at Belhaven is to be writers, not authors. So if you do write that book that they are obligated to say no to, the writer is ready to write the next one.
Right.
The person who's just wanting to be the author is crushed. It hurts getting anything rejected, but if you keep working, you've got the next thing in the pipeline.
The great irony is this. The odds are almost unimaginably against you, number one. However, the machine is starving at all times to be fed by new material. So on one hand, it's pre-wired to say no, 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 no. And yet on the other hand, they're just dying to find the next big thing. So if you can be that next thing, if you can be creative enough or off angle enough or come up with a new voice or something that's never been done, you know, you can be that. Or if you're honest enough, if you're like Angie Thomas, and what you end up doing is giving voice to people who haven't been heard from, the world is just waiting for you, man, you know.
Yeah. May I add one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
And Angie is a great example. If you think about selling a novel and getting it out there, what do you think they're going to say after they give you the contract, or before they even give you the contract? What else have you got to show me? And Angie had on the come up to show them. So that's a writer.
I mean, a girl in Jackson, Mississippi. How many? 2 straight years on the New York Times bestseller list, #1.
I hear she's got #1 and #2.
Yeah, she knocked her own self out of #1 with her second book. That's the kind of problems you want.
Yeah,
right? I've never had that problem.
Yeah,
but I would like to have. Angie, my hat's off to you.
Yeah. 3 cheers. Okay, so they've got featured 22 questions in 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Where were you born?
Stuttgart, Germany.
Who would you want to play you in a movie?
God. Matthew McFadden.
What was your first job?
My first job, working for my dad, a doctor. I got to stitch some people up and learn all about the lab. But my first real job where I was ruthlessly exploited was digging sewer ditches in Mississippi with a very rural crew. I learned a lot.
And a bunch of water moccasins.
Yeah, that's right.
What is your biggest fear?
Oh, let's don't even get into that.
You want to skip that one?
Let's skip that, yeah.
Who makes you laugh the most?
Oh, my God. You know, who makes me laugh the most? I'm talking to my wife off camera. Chris Rock. Who's that guy? Lewis Black makes me laugh. You know, God, I don't know.
Can I guess the answer to this next one?
Yeah.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Tab.
You
got it, baby. I didn't let you guess.
You didn't let me guess. All right. What is the last concert you went to?
Wow. The last concert I went to was The Police. Is that right? I went to... I'm a big Sting fan and Police fan, and I play a lot of their music, and I took my young son. I ponied up, man, for seats second row center in the Garden or whatever in Las Vegas, and talk about luck. We had second row center. Whoever had first row center didn't even show up.
Oh my gosh.
And somebody behind me, this was in the area of like Steve Wynn, I think, was behind us, and man, we just jumped the seats right in the first row, and the Police were like from here to the wall. Oh, it was sweet. But anyway, sorry.
And in a big venue. What is your middle name?
Greg. Mark Gregory Iles.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, let's don't go there either.
What's the last book you read?
What is the last book I read? Wow. You know,
Crawdad one?
Yeah, I started Where the Crawdads Sing. I haven't finished that, but so that's the most recent.
What is your favorite hobby?
Music.
I won't ask what is your guilty pleasure. I'll skip that one. Do you have any hidden talents? These get weird. What color is your toothbrush? That's pretty personal, isn't it?
Wow. You know, I have a different toothbrush on every floor. There's some personal information there. Yeah. All right.
How do you take your coffee?
Black.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters?
What is the last movie in theaters? You know, it's been a long time. What I would like to do is go back and see a re-release of 2001: A Space Odyssey in theaters.
That would be cool.
I want to see that, and let's just say that movie moved me when I was 8 years old. I also happen to know it's George Clooney's favorite movie, and I have something in that vein that will be coming eventually. Let's just say that. My publisher just cringed and went, "Oh my God, no."
You're supposed to write the same book over and over, right? What cause is dear to your heart?
Oh man, I would just, you know, the same as everybody else. I mean, the first book signing we just did in Natchez was for, you know, the stew pot to get meals to people. Yeah. But what's near to my heart is to think that towns like Natchez, that God knows were born in, you know, what would you call slavery? You know, some writers call it the wound in America's side, you know.
Serpent in the garden.
And so towns like Natchez that reach this sort of apogee of excess in a way, and a sort of feudal society, a non-democratic society, to think that cities like that can transcend the pain that they went through, and you get, you know, people will tell you, oh, how great it is, or this or that, or we've always gotten along, but in some ways that's true, but not really with equality, you know, not where people really look at each other on equal terms, and that day where, I mean, you know, Natchez is still split into private and public schools, you know. Will there ever be a day when everybody's kids go to school together? I really don't know. Whether you look in Natchez or you look in Washington, D.C.
And something like that, some social justice that's actually funded, paid for, was the most tantalizing trap in your book.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to spoil anything for your readers, but there was a Faustian bargain that...
Yeah. And I'm not even sure how I feel about that. When you're offered the chance to make things better, is it okay to compromise your most sacred principles if you tangibly are going to improve the lives of thousands of people? I think I'd probably answer yes, it is permissible.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's the old thing. It's sort of a inverse of the old World War II dilemma. You know, do we let them bomb this city so that we don't have to reveal the fact that we know their codes? You know, you get to these impossible dilemmas in life, and there's no right answer, man. You do what you do, and you try to live with it, and that's really what the essence of life is, right? I mean, the idea that you're going to set up something in a book and somebody makes this great moral choice or whatever, that's not what it is, man. Life is doing the best you can do.
The best compromise.
Carrying your own water, living with the choice you made.
Right.
Going on, you know, and that's, everybody out there does that. And honestly, man, that is what people ask me today in a bunch of interviews, what do you want people to take from this book? You know, what do you want? All I hope for is that people see their own lives in the dilemmas that are in these pages and maybe think in a different way about whatever it is they're going through, you know, like maybe they got this confessional impulse and you know what, the best thing to do, just shut up and not say anything because you're going to make yourself feel better but nobody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just a small thing, but human life is pretty small, really. That's one thing success taught me, man. You know, when you're younger and you dream of hitting the New York Times list or having a hit album or whatever, man, you get to be this age and you realize, man, I could care less what car I'm driving or who knows I'm this or that or whatever. Man, all that matters is your wife, your kids, your health. You know, all it sounds corny, but it's easy to lose sight of that. You know, you chase the next thing, you chase the next thing. None of that matters. You know, the work matters, but even that is secondary, really.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's your best. Do you want what's on your tombstone? Do you want it to be, you know, the titles of your books or the name of your kids, you know?
Yeah. Was that the best of you, or is it still surviving you?
Right. So we obviously left the parameters of Facebook Live, I think. But anyway, we want to thank everybody for coming again. This is Matthew Gwynn, author of the great book, The Resurrectionist and The Scribe, and I'm Greg Iles. And I don't know if we answered all the questions because our iPad died, but if Steve Jobs were still around, that iPad would still be firing along, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Anyway, so man, I wish we could just like hang out with you guys and we could all be in a bar and just, you know, have a talk, but we can't right now. But I'll be on the road for the next 3 weeks or a month. And for all you burglars out there, yes, I've got armed redneck friends staying at my house right now, so don't get any ideas back in Natchez, okay? Anyway, thanks. It was great. I guess this is a wrap, right? All right,
Pleasure.
bud. Thank you, Matthew.
Congratulations.
Yeah.